Alright guys, this is Inaccurate. So I wanted to kind of go over some anime I thought kind of needed like a special mention or, like a positive light shined on them because these animes I really enjoyed. But individually, like I didn't have enough to say about them. So I just decided to cram them all together and go with that. Should be fun, right? So 86 is basically about like this slave group who uses like these shitty ass robot spiders to fight like these high grade robot CGI spiders. They're outcasted by their kingdom because their kingdom wants to keep all like the purebred citizens within the wall, and so they just let them die and be like the body bags to kind of fend them off. Because the story's like focused on like the slave group. The slave group is, like they're constantly having their comrades die. People die off screen. There was this one scene with the fucking robot where it replays the whole squad. You could see all these people and like when they were so much happier together, and now they're just kind of like dwindles down into like the shitty like 5-man group. It was pretty fun to watch. One of the gripes I had about it was that, especially in season 1, I couldn't really get used to like the characters too much. Like I couldn't name anyone off the top of my head. So like the pacing was just a little too fast. So like people just kind of died and I'm just like, oh, that sucks. But like I wish I could kind of form more of like an emotional relationship with each character. That would have been great. I think it would have much bigger impact. Other than that, people compare it to Code Geass, which I don't think it's as good as Code Geass. People also say this is a masterpiece. I don't really think this is a masterpiece. If I had to compare it to Code Geass, I would say it's like Code Geass, the EU version, like, where they did those spin-off movies. But Code Geass was more focused on like the whole like chess battle between like each of their heads. This one is more focused on like the soldier perspective and like what they kind of have to go through. Other than that, it was a very enjoyable war story. Like I especially love the perspective because each like slave group has to be assigned an operator, and like the operator has to hear like there are pretty much like their death cries, what's going on, and they're just like being overwhelmed by the enemy. They're just behind a computer screen and all this like chaotic shit is just happening. It's very interesting. The next anime is To Your Eternity. So I remember reading some of the comments saying like, oh, it's the same author as the person who did Koe no Katachi, the movie. I never watched that. Apparently it was really sad. This anime is pretty fucking sad too. Like the first episode, it's basically there's this god dude and he drops down some weird technology rock thing. So then it kind of goes from like a rock to like a wolf, and then eventually becomes a human. And you're just kind of watching it like go through these phases, experiencing what it means to be like a living being, and going through all these like sad times. And after you watch episode 1, you will pretty much know like the pacing of the whole rest of the anime, because it pretty much takes episode 1 and then repeats it in arcs. It's really good if you want something emotional to watch. You kind of like the short stories. The main story isn't bad, but I didn't like the last arc, like the prison arc. The prison arc just kind of felt out of place. I didn't really care for any of the characters, really. It didn't keep in tone with like the previous arcs as well. But other than that, yeah, it's pretty good to watch if you want something like different, or maybe you're just a fan of the author from Koe no Katachi. The next anime is Megalo Box Season 2. This one actually surprised me because like before I watched this, I remember thinking to myself like, oh man, it's another season of Megalo Box. Like I have to. Like, I remember how season 1 went. He basically went from, like, 0 to 100, and then, he became, like, the champion of the Megalo boxing. But season 2 was like, holy shit, that one blew my expectations out of the water. Basically, Joe, like, the champion, like, he went on, like, this downward spiral between season 1 and season 2. Like, apparently, like, his coach fucking died, and it's, like, his fault, and now he blames himself, and he's taking painkillers, and he's doing, like, underground boxing, and his body's all fucked up and shit, And then, like, all the previous characters that you knew from the anime are suddenly, like, not there, and you're just questioning yourself, like, whoa, what the fuck is happening, And it kind of shows, like, You know, like the great side to being like being on the top of your game, but you know, now you see like the low side of being, you know, the champion or like being as good as you are. It was a really good turn of pace. Like I really enjoyed like episodes 1 through 6. That was like the good meat. I would definitely recommend it. Yeah, you don't even need to watch Megalo Box Season 1. Season 2 was just like its own kind of like standalone kind of thing. The gripe I have with this anime is that like the ending, I didn't really like the ending, but I do respect it a lot. It felt very appropriate for how the tone of the whole anime was. Next one is Mashiro no Oto. Basically, it's the anime with the whole shamisen. You know, like how there's music animes that are based on like different instruments. One's on piano, other one's about violin. Well, this one's about the shamisen. I remember episode 1 was so good. You know, like basically the main character, he runs away from home because his grandpa dies. He gets picked up by this hot chick, and then you know they start living together. And you're just like, okay, well, what the fuck does this have to do with music? It fucking doesn't. That's why it was so nice. Basically, the first episode was like a really good filler episode, especially the end of the first episode. That was really nice. As you keep kind of watching the rest of the anime because you want to know, like, what actually happened to him. It basically just turns into your regular music competition anime where you're basically like, oh, okay, he goes to school. They find out he's really talented. Oh, okay, now he's trying to form a team. Now he's going to a music competition to show how big his dick is. What I do love about this anime is that I could actually like hear the difference in playing styles of each character. Like a lot of animes that I've watched, like when they're focused on like piano or the violin, or like, you know, they're just like a whole orchestra. Like I can't really hear the difference between like one character to another character, or even one anime to another anime. Like it all just kind of sounds the same to me. I could audibly hear like a very distinct differences between each of like the shamisen playings, which was so nice because like each one had their own kind of style. Each one had their own group style. Like they all kind of like melded very, very well together. Ending kind of sucked though, but I enjoyed the ride very thoroughly. The next one is Bishonen Tanteidan. Look, I know you saw the picture, you saw there was a bunch of dudes, and you saw one girl. It's like a reverse harem. Not your thing. But, you know, that obviously means you just haven't seen the massage scene. This anime, I think, was also made by Shaft, and why that is important is because, like, the style and the dialogue are very similar to Bakemonogatari, because it is very, very dialogue heavy. Mainly because it's a story based on a detective club and they solve mysteries. And, you know, like the mysteries are very long-winded. However, because of that, you know, they mix a lot of that kind of style into it. And one of the great parts about this anime is just that they mention it themselves, which is the aesthetic, the kind of graphics, the style of it is just like out of this fucking world. It's like fucking like top-notch stuff. Like they put a lot of work into making this shit look really beautiful, and I appreciate every moment of it. Even though, you know, the actual meat of it wasn't really, you know, like super interesting, but it was still a very like eye-gasming thing to watch, and that is something I can appreciate. But yeah, it's these animes are things you probably would watch if you wanted something different. You know, maybe if you're too tired of all the isekai animes, or maybe you just want to see something that has like a different flavor to it. And I would probably recommend any of these, to be honest. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm out. Bye.